Hello, my name is Keith Hill and I'm with Omron Automation and Safety. Today's video will demonstrate how to get connected to an EJ1N-HFU-ETN module via Ethernet IP to an NJ controller. First thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Sysmax Studio and we'll provide a project name. Then we'll go down and we'll select the actual controller. The controller I'm using today is an EJ101 and it's going to be a -1000. So I'll go and I'll select 1000. Now select Create. Okay, now that this is opened up, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into the Ethernet settings. So we'll do that by coming over and going to Configure and Setup. And we'll go down to Controller Setup and Built-in Ethernet IP. Now in this case, I'm going to leave the IP address as a default, which is 19.2.168.250.1. Okay, so after we've gotten that set up, we're going to come up and we're going to set up the communications. So we'll go to Controller, Communications Setup. And here we're going to go in and enter in the Ethernet IP address that we're going to communicate to the PLC. Okay, now we're going to go and test our communications to make sure that we do and test OK. So we'll go and say OK to this window. Okay, the next thing we'll do is we'll come down to Data, Global Variables, and we'll open up that to get prepared to set up our global variables. Okay, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to open up our network configurator. Once we've opened up the network configurator, the first thing we're going to do is go and expand the Omron components, and we'll go into Communication, and we'll scroll down and we'll select our NJ101 and pull that into the application. I'll then go and select the EJ1 HFU ETN. Now in this case, you do need to load the most current EDS file that you'll find on our website. Alright, now as you pull that in, first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to go and reassign the IP address. So I'll go and I'll click here, right click, and then change node address. Now in this case I could leave it at 19.2.168.252, but I'm going to go and choose to enter in 4 here to make it a little bit easier. And I'll say OK. Alright, now with the EJ1N HFU ETN, its default IP address is 19.2.168.0.4. So we will need to go in and change that to our current network that we're choosing here, the 250.4. To do that, we'll go in and we'll get in to our USB connection. I'm going to go into Properties, from this, and go into Properties here. And I'm going to go and get onto the current network that the EJ1 is set for, which is 0.4. I can do that 5. And I'll say OK. Close. Close. Okay, now that I've gone and gotten on the Ethernet card address, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go up to Options. Tools. I need to get in line. So Network, Connect. I'm going to connect to that network. And I'll say OK and OK. Alright, so now I should be able to come up to Tools, and I'm going to set up the TCP/IP configuration. Here I'm going to go and enter in my target address, which is 19.2.168.0.4. And And here I can actually get the information from the device by clicking on here. It also lets you know that you do have established communication to the card. And I'm going to change this to 250.4, and I'm going to send it to the device. Okay, now we're going to close this out. I will need the cycle power on my Ethernet card to make those changes take place. Okay, now I'm going to need to go and get back on to the 250.4. I'll get back onto the 250 here and say OK. I'm going to close that out. Okay, so now that we've gone and we've changed the Ethernet IP address in the EJ1, we should be able to go online with it. I'm going to go and open up a command line, make sure that I can ping it. And I do get a reply back from the card. So I have successfully gone and changed the Ethernet IP address for that card. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and set up the Ethernet card. So to do that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to double click here on the card. Okay, and that's going to go and open up our edit device parameters. Now the first thing that we're going to do is under units, we're going to go and select my card that I'm using on the EJ has an address of 01. So under this slot here, I'm going to use the pull down. I'm going to select the card that I'm using. Presently I'm using an EJ1N-TC2A-CNB. So I'm going to select that. And then I'll come down here and I'll scroll down, or I could actually do collapse all. And I'm going to go into the input area. Now as a default, you'll have pre-canned settings that have been chosen for you. Now all these settings don't pertain to my card because you'll see you got settings for 01, 02, and so on. Also up here you have error nodes for 16 to 24. So I only have a single card, so I'm just going to go and select and deselect this guy up here. And then I'm going to come down here to the unit 2, and I'm going to go and deselect this as well. This will save processor time, or communication time actually. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to deselect all of them. Now I'll deselect a few of them here and then I'll fast forward just to show you what I'm doing. Okay, now that I've gone and set up all the inputs that I'm using, presently I'm just calling up the process value, channel status, heater current, monitor, and the MV for heating for channel 1, and then I've got the same thing set up for channel 2 of unit number 1. Now I'm going to go and collapse the unit input area, and I'm going to go and set up my output area. Basically we have the same setup here too. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to get rid of everything all the way down, and I'll come down here and I will then get rid of these as well in the same similar fashion of marking it not allocated. Okay, now that I've gotten rid of all of the output parameters, basically right now I just have an operation command for unit number 1, and then I have a channel 1 set point. And I'm going to go and choose to pull in a few more things. So I'm going to pull in the proportional band for channel 1, the integral time, and also the derivative time. And I'll also pull in an alarm value for alarm 1 and alarm value for channel 1, alarm value 2 for channel 1 as well. And I'm going to do the same setup for channel 2. Proportional. Okay, so I basically have all the parameters set up. Now, how you define these here will be also the same addressing that you set up in the Sysmax Studio as well, because we're going to be setting up an array. So each one of these is going to consist of a word in the array that we're going to set up. So in some cases, it may be good to actually do a screenshot of both your input and your output so you know when you get into the Sysmax Studio of how your addressing will be done. Okay, so for my output area, basically I've gone and created up 13 variables for my output area, and I've gone and created 17 variables for my input area. What we're going to have to do now is we're going to have to go back to the unit area, and we're going to have to go and declare those. So for my TC input side, I'm going to go, and this is in bytes, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to have to set this up as 34 inputs, because it's 17 times 2. And then for my outputs, I'm going to go and set that up for 26, because then that would be 13 times 2. And then we can go and say OK here. All right, so we've gone and changed the setup here. Now the other thing too, what you may want to do here is you may want to go and change the node on this one for your NJ to give it a complete name. And you can do that by doing change device comment, because you may get some errors because it's not set up completely. And we're going to go and do NJ101-1000 and say OK. So we do have the correct part number, complete correct part number for our NJ101. Okay, so now that we've set up the card, we're going to have to go and set up the NJ. But before we go and do that, now that we know how much words we're going to do, is we're going to have to come into our Sysmax Studio. Now the one thing I didn't show you earlier is under the controller and communication setup, right now I'm going and being connected via Ethernet through a hub. So I got to go and I got to select this. I'll do an Ethernet communication test again and say OK, because if we don't set this up, we won't get communication. I'll say OK to that, and then I'll come back and I'll go on to my global variable area. Okay, now we're going to come over to the Sysmax Studio and we're going to set up our variables. So our first variable I'm going to go and mark as 2 EJ1N. I'm going to set this up as an array. And here we're working with words, and 0 is counted as a word. So in this case, I'm going to go and set up, this is going 2. So in this case, I got to set this up for 13 words we had assigned. So I'm going to go and set this up for 12 because 0 is counted. Get rid of my question mark. And it's going to be set up as words. And for this one here, I'm going to go in and then set it. This is 2, so it's going to be what I'm going to be sending to it, so it's going to be considered an output. And I'm going to right click, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call this from EJ1N. And on this one here, we had 17 words, so I'm going to mark this as 16. And I'll set this up as an input to our processor. Okay, now we've gone and done that. We're going to come up to Tools and we're going to export these global variables to our network configurator. I already have a pre-canned area where I'm going to save it, so I'm just going to overwrite this file and say save. And then now we've gone and done that, we need to come back to our network configurator. And I'll go and double click on my processor to set up my processor. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come to our tag sets, and we're going to come down here and we're going to go and import those tags. that we had just set up. This is a better way to do it because then you know your byte counts are going to match. Now we're going to come over to connections, and with this selected, I'm going to go and bring that down to register the device. I'll double click on this, and then this is where you're going to go and set up your originator to your target. Using this pull down, I'm going to go and select this, and I do need to make sure that my byte counts do match. Same here, 26, so I'm good. And I'm going to go and select register once, and I'm going to close and say OK. And you'll notice that it'll put a little box here indicating that this device is registered to my processor. Okay, now that we've got both of these set up, we're going to go in and we're going to download them to the unit. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to go and I'm just going to disconnect and then reconnect to make sure that I am on the correct network. Select that. Ethernet IP. Okay, I'm online here with the units. So now I can come up here and I can go and select download if I choose. So you can see it's downloading to my card at the present time for my Ethernet, EJ1 Ethernet card. This does take a little bit of time. And now I'm downloading the parameters, if you saw that, to my NJ controller. Okay, and by doing that also, it asked me if I wanted to reset the units, and I said yes. So if you give it a couple seconds, it'll reset the devices. And right now, all my indicators are good. They're nice and green, and I am communicating. Okay, so now that we've gone and got that, we also got a network download was complete as well to indicate that we did it. I'm going to come back to my Sysmax Studio, and I need to send these two variables that I had set up to the processor. So I'm going to get online with that. I am via my hub, so I'm OK here. That is the connection I want to make, so I'm going to say OK. Give it a second. It indicates that I am online with the yellow bar up here. And I'm going to come up to Controller, and I'm going to go and Synchronize. We'll give it a couple seconds. And I'm going to transfer to the controller. They're asking me if it's okay to set it to the program mode. I'm going to say yes. And now they're asking me if it's okay to put it back to the run mode. I'm going to say yes. And then I didn't get any errors, so I'm going to say close to that. Okay, so we've gone and set those two variables down to our processor. Now I can come back up here to control, view, and I'm going to set up a watch tab. Okay, now I'm going to use the tables, so I need to go and click, make sure that this is highlighted, and I'm going to go and click on my first variable, and I'm going to bring that down to my watch window. You'll see it automatically loaded my registers. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to right click on this tab, and I'm going to add a watch tab page. So I basically have two tables set up, and I'm going to pull my from in as well. So now I have basically two, one for from and one for to. So there's my addresses there. Okay, so next is we're going to go and open up CX Thermal. Okay, so I am bringing up my CX Thermal. I am connected with the EJ1 with CX Thermal. And I'm going to come up here to Trend Monitor, and I'm going to go and select Trend Viewer. This way we'll be able to go and we'll see if, and I'll bring that up here. Okay, see if we actually have our values. Once we change them in the processor, we'll see them over here in the trend monitor. So I'm going to come up to here, Operation, and I'm going to start my trend monitor. And you can see I have a couple variables already pre-canned in there. I got the process value, and then I got the two set points here as well. So maybe I can bring this in a little bit here. Okay, so this is going to be the set point for channel 1 and the process value. So right now I'm reading about 78 degrees for my process value. Okay, so now if I come back, okay, now I'm going to come back to my Sysmax Studio, and I'm going to go to my From window and see if I can bring this out a little bit so we can see our values as they're being changed. Okay, so what we did is we did declare our 9th word is actually going to be the process value for channel 1. So if I bring up my trusty calculator, and this is going to be in hex, so if I go in and I type in, click on hex, and I type in 4E, and I change it to decimal, you'll see that it reads 78 degrees. Now if I come in here and I change my process value on my EJ, and I go in and I look, now it's changed to 80, so I come back here, change it to 80, and see they both match for 128 degrees. I also have the ability to go in and go to my to ETN, and I have the ability to send a command code. Now with our settings, our first word in our to EJ was our command code. Now if you go to the EJ1 manual, we do have command codes, and to set a run, which is OA, and if I want to run both channels, channel 1 and 2, I use FF. So OA FF. So if I come back here and I enter in 0A FF, press enter, and come over here, you'll see that I'm actually starting to control. And I can go in and I can change my set point to see the actual control. Now the set point is our next word down here. So I'm going to go in and right now I'm going to lower my process value down a little bit below 100. And I'm going to go in and enter in 64, which is actually, I believe 64 is 100. So if I go decimal, clear. 64 in hex to decimal equals 100. So I'm going to change my set point to 100. Hit enter. You'll see my set point changed to 100. And you'll see now I'm actually controlling my process as well. So I am in the run mode. I'm controlling my process. Everything's working out fine. So those are some various ways that you can go in and set up the processor and the EJ1 to make sure that it communicates. Thank you very much for your time, and have yourself a great day.